Here we're going to talk about what a Michigan bar exam essay looks like. This will give you an idea of what to expect on test day. So what we're going to do is we're going to read through a question, we're going to look at the examiner's analysis, and then we're also going to look at a high-scoring student answer. So this will give you an idea of what to expect and what you're expected to write to get a high score on the essay portion of the bar exam. So let's just start by reading the question together. Anne Marie was at her neighborhood's annual community pool party with her friend Kate when she accidentally sat in her sunglasses. Frustrated that her $20 sunglasses would not bend back properly, Anne Marie threw the sunglasses toward the trash can. However, the sunglasses landed next to the trash can. Shortly thereafter, Anne Marie turned to Kate and asked if she was ready to leave so they could get out of the sun. Preoccupied in conversation, Kate forgot her brand new $3,000 designer sunglasses on a table next to where they were sitting. Later that evening, one of the neighborhood kids, Beth, noticed Anne Marie's sunglasses next to the trash can, picked them up, and took them home. Beth, being a creative design student, fixed the glasses, painted the sides, and added jewels and other items to create more of a designer look. Beth then posted the glasses online for sale and sold them for $2,000. Anne Marie later found out about the sale and demanded that Beth either return the sunglasses or the sale proceeds to her immediately because they were her sunglasses. Beth refused. Mary, another neighbor, picked up Kate's designer sunglasses toward the end of the pool party and gave the designer sunglasses to the HOA president. She asked if she could send out an email notification or a letter informing their fellow neighbors about the sunglasses that were left behind. The very next day, the HOA president sent the following notice to each owner by first-class mail along with its monthly newsletter. Hello neighbors, a pair of sunglasses was found by the pool at the end of our pool party. We are holding the sunglasses at our office. If the property is not claimed within 4 months of the date of this letter, the property will be considered abandoned and disposed of pursuant to applicable law. Best regards, HOA property management staff. 4 months later, knowing that no one had claimed the sunglasses, Mary decided that she would go pick them up from the office. The HOA office agreed that Mary could take the sunglasses. 1 month later, when Kate was visiting Anne Marie, she came across the notice letter and was excited that someone found her glasses. She quickly went to the HOA office and demanded her glasses be returned to her. The HOA office informed her that Mary had the sunglasses. Kate immediately demanded a return of the sunglasses from Mary, and Mary refused. Applying Michigan law, fully discuss 1. Whether Anne Marie is entitled to the $2,000 proceeds from the sale of the pharmacy sunglasses, and 2. Whether Kate is entitled to the return of the designer sunglasses. Okay, so this is an example of a personal property question from February 2020. This is actually the exact same font that you'll see on the bar exam, this Courier New font. It's pretty awful, but this is an example of what you're going to actually see. And you'll also notice that this is a pretty long fact pattern. You're only going to have 20 minutes to read the question, figure out what you're going to write, and then respond to the fact pattern. This is not abnormal. A lot of the questions on the Michigan bar exam are kind of long. They tend to be between a half page and then over a page. So keep that in mind. The best thing to do when you're answering a question, and we're going to talk about this in depth, I just want to point it out right now, is to start with the call of the question. So this is that part in bold at the very bottom when it says applying Michigan law fully discussed, and then it has 2 questions. They're telling you exactly what they want you to discuss. They're telling you exactly what you have to discuss to get a score of 10 on the exam. If you say something that's not relevant to one of these 2 questions, you're probably not going to get any points for it. So keep that in mind. They're very focused on the Michigan bar exam in terms of what you should be saying. Now, next what we're going to do is we're going to read the examiner's analysis together. I'm going to put it up on the screen. I'm not going to read every part of it word for word, but I am going to go through it so you have an idea of how the examiners approach this type of question. And I'm going to point out some key things as we go along. The main key thing that I want to point out is that they discuss each of these issues. So they're first going to discuss the first issue, they're going to state the rule, apply the law, and conclude. Next, they're going to discuss the second issue, state the rule, apply the law, and conclude. This is a very formulaic way to approach the essay portion of the bar exam, but it's exactly what they want you to do. You just have to talk about the issue, state the rule, apply the law, and conclude. It's very similar to what you did in law school, but it does differ in some ways, which we're going to talk about in a little bit after we review the essay question together. So let's start by looking at how the examiner's analysis answers the question regarding the pharmacy sunglasses. Okay, so it says pharmacy glasses proceeds Anne Marie versus Beth. Beth is likely able to keep the proceeds of the pharmacy sunglasses because it appears that Beth abandoned the sunglasses. 2 requirements must be met to establish abandonment. First, it must be shown that there is an intent to relinquish the property, and second, there must be external acts that put that intention into effect. So that first paragraph is basically the rule. They're talking about what abandonment is. Next, it says, as indicated in the facts, Anne Marie's intent to relinquish control over the sunglasses is inferred by the fact that she was frustrated by the bent sunglasses and attempted to throw the sunglasses into the trash. Additionally, the act reflected her desire to permanently part with the sunglasses and an indifference as to what would happen to the sunglasses next. It does not matter that Anne Marie missed the trash can and instead threw the sunglasses next to the trash can. Her intent was clear. Okay, so this is the analysis. They stated the rule, and now they're basically taking each element of the rule. You need intent and an act, and they're applying the law. They're saying her intent was clear, she acted, she threw them toward the trash can. It doesn't matter that she technically missed the trash can, and they're basically applying the facts, in this case, to figure out what the conclusion should be. Next, it says there are no statutory or other legal requirements on the part of a private party who finds abandoned property of that nature. Therefore, as a private finder of the sunglasses, Beth acquired full ownership interest of the sunglasses once retrieved. The abandonment of the sunglasses by Anne Marie forecloses any arguments of her subsequent entitlement to the glasses. So it arrives at a conclusion. Basically, it says Beth is going to be able to keep the proceeds. Anne Marie doesn't have a claim. Now let's just look really quickly. If we look at this overall, first we see the issue. This is not a fancy issue statement. It just says pharmacy glasses proceeds, Anne Marie versus Beth. All right, so the issue, they're just basically saying which issue they're talking about, but they don't have some fancy issue statement that, captures the rule, the analysis, the conclusion in one nice sentence. It's literally just a couple words to alert the reader as to what issue they're talking about. Next, they state the rule. It's very important to know the rule. Next, they apply the rule. So they take each element of the rule and they apply it to the facts. Go back to the facts. Make sure you're talking about all the pertinent facts. Your analysis section will help you arrive at the correct conclusion, because that's exactly what they do last. They arrive at a conclusion. So a couple ways this differs from law school. You might think, it's the same thing, it's Iraq. And it is very similar. You're still going to be using Iraq. You're going to be pointing out which issue you're discussing, stating the rule, applying the law, and concluding. But it differs from law school essays because you're not going to be arguing both sides. You don't see arguments on both sides here. You just see an application of the law. It also differs from law school because here you want to arrive at a real conclusion. Beth is going to be able to keep the proceeds. Anne Marie doesn't have a claim. In law school, sometimes your conclusion might have been more wishy-washy, or maybe you didn't even arrive at a conclusion, and most law school professors didn't care. On the Michigan bar exam, they're going to be looking for a conclusion, and they're going to be looking for it to be accurate. You get points for your correct conclusion. Okay, so again, this is similar to a law school essay, but also a little different. For the second issue, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to point out what they do. They start with the issue. It says return of designer sunglasses, Kate versus Mary. Then they state the rule. They talk about the Lost and Unclean Property Act in Michigan. You probably did not learn about this in law school, but hopefully you will in your bar review course. And they basically say in Michigan, the Lost and Unclean Property Act applies, and basically somebody who finds something is required to turn it into law enforcement and wait 6 months. If nobody claims it within 6 months, then law enforcement will return it to them as long as they leave their address and other information. So that's the rule. They say this in a few different paragraphs, and honestly, the rule is more in depth than what you need to write to score high on the bar exam. Next, they apply the law. They say here, Kate purposely placed her sunglasses on the table next to they were sitting, intending to later retrieve them, but forgetting to do so. So Kate mislaid the sunglasses. Therefore, Mary had no automatic legal right to the sunglasses as the finder. Moreover, the sunglasses were designer sunglasses that were properly in excellent condition considering they were brand new, so the sunglasses would not likely have been deliberately discarded. So here they're saying they're not abandoned. In fact, these are mislaid sunglasses. And under such circumstances, Mary would be required to follow the requirements of the Unclean Property Act and report or find or deliver the sunglasses to the local law enforcement agency, which she did not. She would also have to wait 6 months. And here she did not. So therefore, in this case, Mary will be required to return the sunglasses to Kate. Okay, so I skipped a lot of this just because it's very long, but they state the rule, they apply the law, and they conclude and arrive at the conclusion that Mary will be required to return the sunglasses to Kate. There was a stellar rule statement, an analysis that did not entail arguing both sides. Instead, it was just a straightforward application of the law, and then a conclusion, which said, yes, here's what's going to have to happen. She's going to have to return the sunglasses. There's also an example of an actual graded bar exam essay. This examinee scored a 10 on this essay. So she basically got the highest score possible on her bar exam essay. And you can read it to yourself later if you're interested. But I just want to point out a couple things. First, she states the rule. She states the issue. That's that part in bold at the top. She states issue 1 and issue 2. And then for each portion of the question, she states the rule. Her rule statements are pretty good. She applies the law to the facts. Her factual analysis is very detailed. And then she arrives at a conclusion for each issue. So she basically did exactly what the examiners did. What she did not do is her essay answer is not 2 pages long, okay? Hers is much shorter. They don't expect you to write what they write. And in fact, you'll get a 10 if you write much less. Some of the examiner's analyses for these questions are like 6 or 7 pages long. It's ridiculous. You would never be expected to write that. Another thing to notice is she does not include any case cites or anything like that. You're not expected to cite cases or statutes or anything by name or number on the bar exam. So you're just expected to know the law and apply it. Don't worry about all the case citing and stuff like that. The examiners prefer that people call their analysis an examiner's analysis. That's what they call it. Some courses call it a model answer. I used to always call it a model answer. And they said, don't call it a model answer. It's not a model answer. This is not what we expect a student to write. Instead, this is just our analysis. It's the examiner's analysis of this question. So keep that in mind as you're going through and looking at past essays, is you're not expected to replicate the examiner's analysis. You can write much less and still get a perfect score on your essay. The next thing I want to do is point out how the Michigan bar exam is graded. So for each essay, you're going to get a score of 0 to 10. A 10 is considered the highest degree of competence. It's a really great score. It is kind of more common than you might think to get a 10 because it doesn't need to be a spotless answer. It has to be really good to get a 10, but it doesn't need to be spotless. It doesn't need to replicate the examiner's analysis. Some people get 6 or 7 10s on a bar exam. You can see that they go down from highest degree of competence to high degree of competence, clear competence, competence, and anything under 7 is not considered to be quite to the level of competent. All right. A score of 0 is not typically given if you provide some type of answer to the question. I've seen students not answer a question at all, they get a 0. Sometimes they ask, can we appeal it? No, you can't appeal an essay. If you wrote nothing and you got a 0, that's what you deserved. You might also get a 0, and I've seen this before, if you just copy and paste something from a different essay question onto that answer. So for example, it's a personal property question and you just copy and paste your will's answer. I've seen that before. People sometimes do that when they run out of time. The grader's obviously going to notice that and they're going to say, okay, you really didn't respond to this question at all. So they could give you a 0 for that. Other than that, 0s are not commonly given. So if you at least attempt to answer the question, you should get a score of 1, at least. It's very common for students to get scores that are all over the board. So you might find yourself getting some 9s and 10s and then also some, a 3 and a 4. That's okay. They'll balance each other out and you'll get that passing score that you need in the end. Fingers crossed. Some wonder, do the graders actually follow the Michigan essay grading rubric? And we write appeals, so we read thousands of essays every administration, and we've seen exactly how the graders score. Overall, they tend to follow this rubric. It seems like they care and they're trying to make an effort to follow this rubric. Sometimes there are some errors, and remember that graders are human beings. So if they're reading 100 of the same essay, which they will, you'll have one grader that reads all of essay question number 1, okay? One grader that reads all of the answers to essay question number 2. So that same grader is reading, hundreds of the same essay over and over and over again. And as they start to read hundreds of essays, they start to scan it more than read it. It probably takes them about 2 minutes to get through an essay question, if that. Because they're scanning it. They know exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for a specific rule, an analysis, and a conclusion. They don't have to read every word of your essay to see if you've addressed all of those portions of the essay that you need to address. So they do tend to scan it. I tend to do that. If I'm reading 100 of the same essay, if I'm grading essays for something, I catch myself doing that as well. That's normal. So what you want to do is make sure that you're writing a clear essay and really drawing attention to your rule, analysis, and conclusion. I put them in 3 separate paragraphs, just like we saw in the examiner's analysis. I would even consider bolding portions of the rule that you know so that the grader's attention is drawn toward that. Some graders do appear to grade harshly and give low scores to the answer despite an overall quality answer. I've seen this happen in evidence and contracts recently where the grader just tends to score low overall. Other graders appear to not read the essay super closely, which can result in overscoring or underscoring of the essay. On the whole, though, they tend to do pretty well. Most graders value the conclusion more than you might expect. So they want you to arrive at the right conclusion. In the past, I've seen if people start off with a conclusion and they say, Beth will win, when Beth shouldn't win the whatever the issue is, sometimes it appears like they don't even read the rest of your answer to that issue. And they'll just say, okay, you didn't get that issue right, and they'll dock off points. So it's important to know that, because you don't want to start with a conclusion. If you start with an incorrect conclusion, the grader's going to lose confidence in your answer. Okay, and hopefully they'll read the rest of your answer, but they're not going to be confident in it when they do. So we always recommend you follow IRAC rather than a CRAC formula or any kind of formula that requires you to put the conclusion first. And not all courses will tell you this, but that's what we recommend based on reading thousands of essays. It just makes a lot more sense to put that conclusion at the end of your essay answer. The only exception to this would be if you're sure your conclusion is right, then go ahead and put it first. Maybe the grader will have more confidence in your answer, and maybe they'll overlook an imperfect rule statement or analysis if they see that you got the conclusion right. But in general, most people don't feel super confident about all their bar exam answers and conclusions. So in general, we recommend that you put that conclusion at the end of your answer rather than the beginning.